We all want to make things happen, right?
Right.
To see our ideas, actually like take root and maybe even, I don't know, spark a little change in the world.
Right.
But how often do we actually stop and think about like the mechanics of influence?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? We tend to see influence as this almost, I don't know, mystical quality some way. Some folks just have it, you know what I mean?
Totally.
While the rest of us are kind of left wondering, like, what's the secret formula?
Totally. And we've all got that friend who could sell ice to a polar bear. Meanwhile, I can barely convince my dog to go outside when it's raining.
What if I told you that influence isn't some innate talent, but rather like a collection of tools and strategies that anyone can learn to use? This deep dive is all about equipping you with a sort of multidisciplinary toolbox, drawing on insights from psychology, sociology, even examples from nature itself to understand the subtle art of influence.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Multidisciplinary toolbox sounds pretty powerful. So instead of just defaulting to like begging or bribery, we're talking about a more, I don't know, strategic approach to getting things done.
Precisely. Think of it this way. Imagine you need to lead your team to achieve, a challenging goal, understanding individual motivations, that's psychology in action. But you also need to navigate team dynamics, resolve conflicts, and build consensus. That's where sociology comes into play.
And I'm guessing there's even more to it than that. What about the company's culture, the market trends, the bigger picture?
You're exactly right. That's where systems theory comes in, right? It's about recognizing those interconnected layers, how a change in one area can ripple outwards and impact the entire system. This multidisciplinary approach helps us connect the dots, seeing those subtle cause and effect relationships that others might miss.
So instead of looking for that one magic bullet solution, it's more about having a framework, a way to analyze any situation from multiple angles and choose the most effective tools for the job.
Exactly. It's about understanding that influence isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about recognizing the levers of human behavior, the power of social dynamics, and even taking cues from how influence plays out in the natural world.
Speaking of cues, this source dives into some seriously interesting concepts. Let's start with one that I know we've all fallen for at some point, the scarcity effect.
Ah, yes. The infamous limited time offer, or that feeling of urgency when we're told only two left in stock.
Ugh, it gets me every time. Suddenly that pair of shoes I didn't even know I needed becomes a must-have. But it's not just about material goods, is it?
Not at all. The scarcity principle applies to information, opportunities, even relationships, right? It taps into a fundamental human fear, the fear of missing out. We place a higher value on things that are perceived as scarce, even if it's completely irrational.
Which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. Our brains are making these snap judgments based on scarcity, even when we should know better. But if we're aware of this bias, we can start to see how it's used to influence our decisions, both ethically and unethically, every single day.
Precisely. Recognizing these psychological triggers is like having X-ray vision into the mechanics of persuasion.
Okay, so we've gone from limited edition sneakers to rewiring our brains to resist impulse buys. But this source also dives into some fascinating examples of influence from the natural world, right?
Absolutely. Nature provides a wealth of knowledge when it comes to understanding the art of influence. One example that always comes to mind is biomimicry.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly is biomimicry?
It's essentially the idea of learning from nature's best designs and strategies. Take, for instance, those harmless butterflies with markings on their wings that perfectly mimic the eyes of a predator.
Oh, right. That's incredible. They're essentially using deception as a survival tactic, freaking out their predators with a simple visual cue.
Exactly. And it speaks to the profound impact that even subtle visual cues can have on perception and behavior.
Wow.
We see this in human behavior all the time. From the clothes we wear to the way we carry ourselves, these signals influence how others perceive us, often subconsciously.
So in a way, we're all constantly sending out these signals, whether we realize it or not, and picking up on those signals from others, influencing and being influenced in a constant feedback loop.
That's a great way to put it. And this constant interplay of influence isn't always about competition or deception. Nature also offers fantastic examples of cooperation and mutual benefit, which brings us to another key concept from the source, symbiosis.
Symbiosis. Okay, now we're really diving into the nature metaphors. But I'm intrigued. How does this concept of different species relying on each other for survival translate into the world of influence?
It's all about shifting our perspective, right? from a win-lose mentality to one of mutual benefit. Just like in nature, where you have these fascinating relationships like the bee needing the flower for nectar and the flower relying on the bee for pollination, successful influence often relies on finding those win-win partnerships.
So instead of seeing every interaction as like a power struggle, it's more about recognizing shared interests and finding ways to create value for everyone involved.
Precisely. It's about building trust, understanding the needs and motivations of others, and seeking out opportunities for collaboration rather than always, defaulting to competition.
It's making me think about how we build alliances, whether it's in our personal lives or in like professional settings. Those strong relationships where each person brings something unique to the table can lead to some pretty incredible outcomes.
Absolutely. And speaking of building connections, that brings us to another powerful tool in our multidisciplinary toolbox,
Yeah.
social network analysis.
Okay, I'll be honest, that one sounds a bit intimidating. Is this where I need to dust off my old sociology textbook and start drawing diagrams of, like social circles?
Not to worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. In essence, social network analysis is about understanding the web of relationships that connects us all. Think of it like a map of how information flows, within a group or a community.
So instead of just broadcasting a message to the masses, we're talking about strategically navigating that network to like amplify its impact.
You got it. It's about identifying the key influencers, those individuals who hold a disproportionate amount of sway within a particular group. By understanding the structure of these networks, we can be much more effective in how we target our message and who we engage with.
This is making me think about those viral marketing campaigns where it feels like something spreads like wildfire overnight. Are they secretly using social network analysis to engineer that buzz?
It's definitely a possibility. While virality is complex and involves many factors, understanding social networks is undoubtedly a key piece of the puzzle.
It's fascinating how something so seemingly intangible, relationships and connections, can be analyzed and leveraged in this way.
It really highlights how influence isn't just about the individual, but about understanding the social fabric we're all a part of.
Right.
And speaking of understanding the bigger picture, the source also dives into the importance of cultural symbols when it comes to influence, which is a whole other layer of complexity.
Right, because it's not just about crafting a compelling message. It's about making sure that message resonates with the values and beliefs of the audience you're trying to reach.
Exactly. Culture plays a crucial role in shaping our perceptions and behaviors. The symbols, rituals, even the stories we tell ourselves carry deep meaning and influence how we interpret the world around us.
So if we want to be truly influential, we need to go beyond surface-level tactics and tap into something deeper.
Absolutely. It's about aligning your message with existing cultural values, understanding the nuances of communication within a specific group, and framing your ideas in a way that feels authentic and relatable.
So it's about speaking the same language, not just in terms of vocabulary, but also in terms of shared values and like understanding.
That's a great way to put it. It's about building bridges rather than walls, creating a sense of shared identity, and showing that you understand and respect the values of the people you're trying to connect with.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Psychology, sociology, even a bit of nature's playbook. It's like we're assembling a toolkit, but now comes the really important part, putting all these tools into practice. But where do we even begin? It's almost like we've been handed this amazing Swiss Army knife of influence strategies, but now we need to learn how to like use each tool effectively.
Right.
It could be a bit overwhelming if you're not, careful.
It's true. Mastering any one of these fields takes, time and practice.
Right.
But remember, the goal isn't to become an expert in everything overnight.
Sure.
It's about developing that multidisciplinary mindset, that ability to analyze a situation from like multiple angles and select the right tools from your toolbox.
So more about strategy than like memorization.
Exactly. It's about connecting those dots. And speaking of connections, the source provides a really compelling example of how to put this into practice, influencing a community to adopt more sustainable living habits.
Okay, no, that's a challenge we can all relate to.
Yeah.
It feels like everywhere you turn, someone's talking about saving the planet. But how do you actually get people to change their behavior?
Well, let's put our multidisciplinary toolbox to work.
Okay.
Remember the scarcity effect we talked about earlier? This principle could be used to highlight the dwindling availability of natural resources or emphasize the limited window of opportunity we have to address climate change.
Creating a sense of urgency, like, hey, we need to act now before it's too late.
Precisely. But it's not just about appealing to fear, right? We can also leverage social proof by showcasing community members who are already living sustainably. Suddenly, it's not just some abstract concept. It's your neighbor saving money with solar panels, or your friend who's growing their own food.
There's that social influence again. Nobody wants to be the only one left out.
Exactly. And remember, those social networks we discuss, they're crucial here.
Right.
Who are the trusted voices in that community? The local business owners, the teachers, the community leaders. They can amplify the message and create a ripple effect far beyond what we could achieve alone.
It's like we're layering these strategies, right? We're not just relying on one tactic, but rather weaving them together to create the much more impactful approach.
Exactly. And don't forget about the importance of cultural symbols. What does this community value? Is it their local parks? Supporting local farmers? Protecting their children's future? By framing sustainability in a way that resonates with those deeply held values, we make it feel personal and relevant.
So it's about making it less about saving the polar bears, though that's important too, and more about protecting the things they love right here, right now.
Precisely. It's about connecting those universal concerns with their everyday lives, making sustainability feel less like a chore and more like a way to protect what they hold dear.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the multifaceted nature of influence.
Yeah.
It's not about, I don't know, manipulation or coercion. It's about understanding those subtle levers of human behavior, tapping into the power of social dynamics, and framing our ideas in a way that resonates with the people we want to reach.
It's about recognizing that we are all influenced and influential in countless ways every single day.
Right.
And by understanding these principles, we can become more conscious and intentional in how we navigate the world and create positive change.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to ponder. Think about a situation in your own life where you'd like to make a difference, big or small. How could you apply even one of these principles to be more effective? Maybe it's at work, in your relationships, or even just convincing your cat to finally try that new scratching post.
The possibilities are truly endless. The key is to stay curious, keep observing, and never underestimate your own potential to create positive change.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep diving deep.